Chapter 71, The Arrogant Young Bai Wangyi. Baixun Xiao Wangyi? Xiao, young. Everyone in the room was taken aback. This Baixun might be young, but he was a martial arts genius at just 17 years old. He had already reached Fighter 5 Dan pinnacle, causing his name to spread far and wide in the entire Danxuan city. Emperor Shenzhui once commented that it was very possible for him to become the youngest Pixu realm expert in the kingdom. Zenan Wang was preoccupied with guarding the southern borders and thus, he didn't reside in the capital as a result. This young Wanai didn't attend classes at Hongshan Academy however, due to his outstanding results. He managed to be admitted into the even more incredible Bewu Academy. Bewu Academy was a school with a one-star master teacher in it. All those who were able to pass the examination to join its ranks were all famous geniuses. These few days, Zenan Wang returned to Danxuan City to report on his duty as such. Baixun followed him to the capital as well. Just that, what is he doing here? Looking for Jiangxuan Loshi. One is the worst teacher in the academy while the other one is a supreme genius, son of an influential and powerful official. There is no way to compare the two at all. Is it possible for the two of them to know each other? But their social positions are way too different. Hurry, invite him in. Elder Shang Chen might not know what is going on, but he dared not to be discourteous to him as such. He quickly gestured for the teacher on duty to escort him in. Who? After a moment, a white-clothed young man walked in with large strides. There were a few retainers following behind him. They were all equipped with metal armor and their eyes were cold. The young man might not be advanced in age, but he exuded a powerful aura. The might of his entire body radiated as though the sun, exerting an intense pressure upon others. Despite being Fighter 5 Dan pinnacle experts as well, just by the aura itself, it was clear that he is much stronger than Shang Bin and Shen Bairu. Paying respect to Xiao Wanai, Shang Chen, clan head Wang Hong and the others stood up from their seats at the same moment. The Wang clan might be titled as one of the four great clans, but compared to the powerful official who was tasked with the duty of guarding the kingdom's south, they were still lacking. Regardless of when and where, those who were in command of military might were always the ones who had the loudest words. Ah. Master Zhang, you are here indeed. Casually waving them away, he ignored the respectful Shang Chen and the others and scanned the surroundings. He suddenly caught sight of a familiar figure and excitedly rushed forward to Zhang Xuan. Why are you here? Zhang Xuan frowned. Master Lu Chen has asked you to learn from me, but you don't have to be so obedient to really come knocking. My dad will be leaving after he is done reporting on his duty, so I can't remain in the capital for long. Thus, I have to make use of every second to learn from Master so that I can pass the test. Baixun explained. Master? How did Baixun Xiao Wanai get acquainted with him? Furthermore, they seem to have a close relationship. Isn't his title a teacher? Why did he call him a master instead? Upon seeing that Baixun was indeed here to seek Zhang Xuan and that the both of them seemed to be in a close relationship, everyone was dumbfounded once more. What is going on? They actually know each other. Isn't Zhang Xuan a teacher? Master, what does this title mean? Furthermore, Zhang Xuan, what's with your attitude? Didn't you see that even Elder Shang and clan head Wang bow upon seeing the young Wanai? Not only did you not bow, you even frowned. Frown your head. Who gave you such guts? Audacious. Elder Shang Chen couldn't hold it in anymore. He walked forward with an intimidating aura. Zhang Xuan, how can you speak to the young Wanai like this? Hurry up, bow and pay your respects to him. To think that you would be oblivious to basic etiquette despite being a teacher, such a lack of propriety. You are truly a disgrace. After which, with a face full of smiles, he turned to Baixun. Xiao Wanai, don't get angry. This Zhang Xuan possesses weak strength, not to mention that he is clumsy and ignorant of etiquette. Before he could finish his words, he saw Xiao Wanai's eyebrows knit tightly together. A frosty aura appeared in his eyes and he seemed as though a lion whose hair was standing on ends, ready to strike. Who the heck are you? Scram to the side. Going by seniority, Master Zhang Xuan belongs to my grandfather's generation, yet you dare to speak of such words. Are you trying to court death? Grandfather? Gudong. Everyone fell to the floor once more. What the heck is with this method of addressing? Xiao Wanai's father is Zenan Wang, who is a peer of Emperor Shenzhui, yet you say that his seniority is equal to that of your grandfather. Doesn't that mean that he is of even higher standing than Emperor Shenzhui? Elder Shang Chen, who was incomparably arrogant a moment ago, trembled uncontrollably, nearly passing out from shock. What the heck is going on? What in the world happened? Especially for Shang Bin and Cao Xan. The both of them felt as though they were going psychotic, grabbing bunch after bunch of their hair out. Their eyes seemed as though they were about to leave their sockets at any moment now. Even Elder Mo, who had been watching the situation with composure all along, felt an ache on his chin. Unknowingly, he had torn his beard out. That's right. Grandpa Zhang is a master painter of an era, and his prowess is incredible to the point that even three of me are incapable of matching up to him. Yet, you dare to say that he is audacious and weak? The heck, you must be tired of living. Or perhaps, you are trying to look for a sparring partner? Baixun. Baixun gestured his subordinate forward. Your humble subordinate is here. Immediately, a middle-aged man stepped forward from his back. Slap him. Baixun commanded. Yes. The middle-aged man wasn't conspicuous in any way when he walked in. However, at this moment, when he lifted his eyelids, a bloodthirsty aura gushed out instantaneously, as though a demon that had stepped over 1,000,000 corpses to climb out of hell. He might be the same cultivation realm as Elder Shang Chen, the both of them being of Pixu realm, but his aura was much stronger compared to the latter. Supreme soldier. The hearts of the crowd skipped a beat. Such bloodthirsty aura could only be tempered from countless life and death situations. Soldiers possessing such an aura were termed as supreme soldiers. Every single one of them possessed unwavering will and incredible prowess, capable of dueling with those who were of higher cultivation realm than them. After leaving everyone flabbergasted by his bloodthirsty aura, the middle-aged man, Baixun, dashed forward in an instant. He appeared before Elder Shang Chen and sent a slap to him. Pa. A crisp sound echoed throughout the hall before Elder Shang Chen could even react. He rotated like a top, turning a complete round before falling to the ground. Fresh blood spurted out of his mouth and a dozen of his teeth could be found in a puddle of blood. Steadying his figure, Elder Shang Chen was on the verge of erupting. As an elder of Hongshan Academy, a Pixie Realm expert, to think he would be sacked publicly. However, he couldn't do anything about it despite being so angry. After all, the other party was the sole son of Zenon Wang, Bei Xiao Wanai. If he really dared to do anything to him, Zenon Wang would probably come killing in and flip the entire academy upside down. It was not like he had never done such a thing before. Back then, a person who had backing comparable to the Wang clan went looking for trouble with Bei Xiao Wanai and wounded him. This infuriated Zenon Wang and he led his army into their residence and purged their entire household in the end. Not only did Emperor Shen Zhui not chastise him over the incident, he even conferred his son the title of Xiao Wanai to appease him. Otherwise, even though he was the sole successor to the family, he didn't have the qualifications of being called Xiao Wanai. This is all Zhang Xuan's fault. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He could only direct the rage he dared not vent on Bei Xun towards Zhang Xuan. If not for this fellow, how could he possibly be embarrassed like this today? Why, are you unhappy with my actions? Seeing his awful complexion, Bei Xun raised his eyebrows and asked haughtily, I dare not to. Elder Shang Chen's heart was bleeding, but he still squeezed out these words through gritted teeth. It is best if you dare not to let me tell you the truth. I am actually saving you. If my grandpa Zhang were to make a move personally and if he were to fail to control his strength properly, you would be dead by now. Upon this, Bei Xun recalled the spar he had that night and his body shuddered subconsciously. What he spoke of was true. This Master Zhang, just by his physical body itself, has a strength of more than 40. What's worse is that he is unable to control his strength. He might not feel anything when he sends a slap over, but you will be gone by then. Chapter 72, Unable to be revoked. Save him? Unable to control his strength? Based on Xiao Wanai's words, Zhang Xuan Loxi's strength is superior to Elder Shang Chen? How is this possible? Without taking too much time, everyone managed to process the events that just occurred. This was especially so for Shang Bin and Cao Xa, who claimed that Zhang Xuan was weak and that Wang Tao was lying. Both of them were unable to believe the situation unfolding before them. In the previous examination, Zhang Xuan was confirmed to be only Zenki Realm Pinnacle. This was something that the entire academy was aware of, and there weren't any news of him breaking through. If so, how could he be stronger than Bei Xiao Wanai? Furthermore, based on his words, it seemed that even Elder Shang Chen was incapable of matching up to him. It might be bizarre and unbelievable, but no one thought that Bei Xun was lying. Everyone knew that not only is Bei Xiao Wanai incredibly talented, he was also fond of competing and sparring with others. He would feel uncomfortable if he didn't spar a couple of rounds every day. Since he was so in awe of this Zhang Xuan, did that mean that he really possessed the strength he spoke of? At this point, every single of them widened their eyes to look at the young man whom they thought was trash previously. There was nothing spectacular about him, except for his white and smooth skin which made him look even younger than his actual age. How could he possibly be an expert? Cough cough. Upon seeing the doubtful gazes of everyone else centered on him, Zhang Xuan shook his head helplessly. He was probably unable to hide his true strength any longer. But after scoring at the bottom for the teacher qualification examination as a fighter 3 Dan Zenki Realm, to become comparable to a Pixie Realm expert after a short break, no one would believe it. Is it that difficult to keep a low profile? Zhang Xuan felt a migraine working up. He wanted to hide his strength, keep a low profile and secretly swang by from the shadows. Initially, he thought that Bei Xun was completely unrelated to the academy whatsoever, so no one else here would learn of it. However, never in his dreams did he expect that in just a single night, that fellow would come rushing over. After making such a huge ruckus, it was impossible for him to hide his strength any longer even if he wanted to. Such ill fortune. Just as he was still perplexed over the situation, he saw Bei Xun Xiao Wanai's face popping up right in front of him with a fawning expression on it. Hee, Master Zhang, Grandpa Zhang, did I settle the matter well? However, he couldn't blame Bei Xun for behaving like this either. Master Lu Chen had already said it clearly that whether he was able to pass the examination or not depended heavily on him. It was natural that he would intentionally try to please him so as to get in his good books. That's the reason why he woke up so early, and upon hearing that Zhang Xuan was here, he barged in along with his subordinates. Still acceptable. Since what stunt was done, Zhang Xuan could only acknowledge it thus. He nodded his head. Zhang Loxi, accept me as your disciple. Aware that Zhang Xuan's strength wasn't just Zenki Realm, clan head Wang Hong did not hesitate anymore. He signaled to Wang Tao with a glance. Wang Tao stepped forward once more and knelt before him. Acknowledging Master Zhang as your teacher, who do you think you are? I haven't even acknowledged him yet, and you want to vie with me? How about we spar for a little bit? Before Zhang Xuan could even speak, Bei Xiao Wanai glared at him. I dare not. Wang Tao was startled. Even though Bei Xun was around the same age as him, his strength had already reached Fighter 5 Dan Pinnacle. Given that he was several times stronger than him, sparring with him, what's the difference between it and seeking death? Fine, Wang Tao, you can listen in by the side of my class tomorrow. If you perform well, I can consider accepting you as my student. Afraid that this Bei Xiao Wanai would stir up trouble once more and pummel Wang Tao's life away, Zhang Xuan immediately interjected. Thank you, Zhang Loxi. Clan head Wang Hong sighed in relief and hurriedly thanked him. Wang Tao wasn't Zhang Xuan's student yet, but from the looks of the current situation, this was the only way to settle the situation now. After all, who could he blame for the disappointing actions of his son, barging into the classroom of the other to kill the teacher? No teacher would accept such a student after meeting with such a situation. However, even though he was just listening in by the side for now, as time went by, as long as he performed well, he was surely able to become an official student. Listening in by the side, Elder Shang Chen was on the verge of tears. He was an elder of the academy, as well as the head of the education bureau normally. He was the one picking students out from the lot. It was one thing if someone withdrew from his tutelage to acknowledge another teacher, but he went on to listen in by the side of the lessons of another teacher instead. Not to mention, the worst teacher of the academy. Elder Shang Chen felt as though his old face was being stepped on repeatedly, and not a shred of his dignity remained. His dignity had been thrown all the way to his grandaunt's house. Why not his grandmother's house? Because he had already passed by it. Master Zhang, is there anything else that you need me to settle? If so, I will help you, after which, teach me painting. Bai Xun turned to look at Zhang Loshi. There is still some things I need to settle. Shang Xuan turned to look at Shang Chen. Elder Shang, the results of the Enlightenment Will trial are already out. Isn't it about time we fulfill the terms of the bet we agreed on? The reason why he was here was because of the Enlightenment Will trial. After the trial had ended, many things have occurred, but it was about time for the bet they have decided upon to be carried out. Shang Xuan, there's no need to be gleeful about this. I lost the Enlightenment Will trial, but at most, I will only suffer 100 god-slaying flogs. I'm afraid that you don't have the ability to strip me of my teaching license. Knowing that he was unable to escape from this any longer, Cao Xun chose to face it, and he walked forward with a ferocious expression. Don't have the ability? Shang Xuan frowned. Indeed, I don't have any bad track records, and I didn't cause any of my students to go berserk either. Even though my result in the teacher qualification examination is subpar, it is still a pass to strip my teaching license just because of a bet. Even the teacher guild doesn't have the authority to do so. Cao Xun howled frenziedly. Is this true? Unsure of the rules and regulations, Shang Xuan looked at Elder Mo doubtfully. He was an elder of the teacher guild, so he should know of these matters. What he says is true. Elder Mo nodded his head. A teacher's teaching license is issued after numerous verifications by the teacher guild. If the person in question does not have a bad track record, it is difficult to revoke his license. Is that so? Shang Xuan frowned. He recalled those who were in the education industry in his previous life over there. Even if a teacher were to be inadequate in their job, the school didn't possess the right to fire them. In fact, even the Ministry of Education didn't have the right to do so, unless they have done something that went against the morals and values of a teacher. It seemed that the situation over here was similar as well. Then, why didn't you say so when we were deciding upon the bet? Shang Xuan couldn't resist asking. Back then, when he was raising his stake, he thought it would be possible for his teaching license to be revoked, so he brought it up casually. If only he knew that revoking one's teaching license was that difficult, he would have just chosen to expel him from the academy. Cough cough. I thought that you would lose. Elder Mo said awkwardly. Not only did Shang Xuan score a 0 in the teacher qualification examination, he had also caused the cultivation of a student to go berserk. If someone were to pursue the matter, it was possible for him to be expelled. As Elder Mo thought that Shang Xuan would definitely lose, he didn't point the matter out. He didn't expect for Cao Xun to lose so thoroughly to him. It is impossible to fulfill the conditions of the bet, unless Elder Mo spoke but hesitated halfway through. Unless what? Unless there is a master teacher or an associate master teacher personally testifying that he is unqualified to remain as a teacher, and the testimonial is reported upwards to the teacher guild. Elder Mo said, Master teacher? Associate master teacher? Where do I look for these? Shang Xuan shook his head. Regardless of whether it was master teacher or an associate master teacher, there were figures high up in the education circle, so how could it be possible for him to be acquainted with one? Furthermore, even if he was acquainted with one, it was impossible for the other party to bother themselves with such a minor bet. Shang Xuan frowned. At this moment, the teacher on duty, Ziloshi, walked in once more and clasping his hands together, his voice echoed in the room. Shang Chen Loshi, there is a lady outside who has identified herself as Huang Yi looking for Shang Xuan Loshi. Chapter 73, Cao Xun's counterattack. Xiao Yu is here too? Bai Xun's eyes lit up. Right after Master Lu Chen tasked them to study under Shang Xuan yesterday, he rushed here early in the morning. If so, how could Xiao Yu lag behind him? In the midst of his words, an elegant figure walked through the doors. Her light yellow top brought out her slim and delicate figure perfectly. Her skin was as white as snow, and she didn't pale in comparison even to Shen Bairu. Paying respects to Zhang Loshi. The moment she entered the room, she headed toward Shang Xuan and bowed deeply. Knowing that the other party was here for the same motive as Bai Xun, Shang Xuan's head hurt and he rubbed his glabella, center of eyebrows. Actually, he knew nothing about painting at all, and all he could do was to point out the flaws in them. He didn't even know where he should start from to teach them about painting. Paying respect to young mistress. Just as he was conflicted over how he should confess this to the other party, Elder Mo walked forward and courteously, he clasped his hands and greets Huang Yu. Young mistress? A thought seemed to have flashed through Elder Shang Chen's mind, causing a feeling of weakness to grasp his legs, resulting in him stumbling backward with a face devoid of color. He asked, could she be the daughter of guild leader Huang of the teacher guild, the genius who managed to become a low-level associate master teacher despite not even reaching her 20s? Just a moment ago, he was still chatting with Elder Mo about the genius in the teacher guild who became a low-level associate master teacher at a young age, and he was thinking about how she was even more incredible than an old man like him. Never in his dreams did he expect her to be this Huang Yu Xiji, and from the looks of it she seemed to be close with Shang Xuan. Xiji, Miss/young mistress. Heavens, what is going on? The moment when he accused the other party of being incapable of imparting knowledge to nurture others, the Wang clan sent their son over to him, even withdrawing him from his tutelage to do so. The moment when he said that the other party was lacking in strength, Bai Xiaowan ran out to verify the strength of the other party, claiming that he himself wasn't a match for him. The moment when he said that only a master teacher and an associate master teacher could revoke Cao Xun's teaching license, an associate master teacher came running over. The heck, Shang Xuan, the heavens must have specially sent you here to deal with me. Elder Shang Chen only felt disconsolate and even suicidal thoughts ran through his head. Cao Xun, who was still arrogant a moment ago, paled in fright and cowered backward. A moment ago, he was at least reassured by the fact that the other party would be unable to revoke his teaching license. However, at this instant, he was truly frightened. Isn't he just a trash who scored 0 in the teacher qualification examination? Why does he know so many people? Why do they all respect him? I will not accept this. Cao Xun gritted his teeth and howled frenziedly in his mind. Before today, the other party meant nothing in his eyes. He wasn't even qualified to compete with him. Yet now the other party had already become a tall mountain that he could only look up towards. Shang Bin's teeth were also clattering. At this moment, Zhang Xuan seemed to have transformed from an ant whom he could crush whenever he pleased into a giant dinosaur. Such a transformation was beyond his wildest imagination. You are an associate master teacher? Hearing Shang Chen's astonishing words, Zhang Xuan looked at the lady in uncertainty. This lass was even younger than him for her to be an associate master teacher. It was indeed true that one should not judge a person by their appearance. I just happened to catch Liu Shi's eyes, and he brought me in to assist him. Huang Yu smiled. Her words might be humble, but self-confidence radiated clearly from her eyes. Somewhat a shorter version of Lo Shi. To become an assistant master teacher, first and foremost, one needed to have talents surpassing others. Secondly, one needed to be granted an opportunity. Even if you possessed overwhelming talent and your ability to guide your students and impart knowledge was incredible, if you were unable to gain the recognition of a master teacher, it was all just empty talk. Huang Yu, as the daughter of Tanxuan Kingdom Teacher Guild's head, she had the privilege of going through a good education from young. Furthermore, given the contacts her father possessed, becoming an associate master teacher wasn't beyond expectations. It is great that you are an associate master teacher. This Cao Xun Lo Shi has lost to me in an enlightenment will trial and he refuses to fulfill his end of the bet. Previously, Elder Mo had said that Cao Xun Lo Shi's teaching license could be revoked if an associate master teacher spoke up for the case against those who were out against him. Zhang Xuan would not let them off their hook so easily. To think that there would be such a matter. Huang Yu frowned. As a teacher, to hold grudges over such a minor affair, even resorting to using the enlightenment will trial to frame your colleagues. He will only soil the name of teachers if he were to remain as one. Elder Mo. Elder Mo stepped forward. I believe that he doesn't have the qualifications to be a teacher. Go and settle the procedures required for it now. Huang Yu said authoritatively. Yes. Elder Mo nodded his head, turning to look at Cao Xun. He shook his head. As an associate master teacher, Huang Yu was of esteemed position. Not to mention that she was the daughter of the guild leader as well. With just a few words, she had sealed Cao Lo Shi's fate. Those who possessed the identity of a teacher were respected no matter where they went. If a teacher was stripped of their teaching license, that could only mean that there was a problem with his conduct. With such a track record, no one would employ him no matter where he went. Hearing the verdict, Cao Xun collapsed onto the floor. His ashen face shrouded in despair. He had spent so much effort just to attain this teaching license, to think that it would be revoked just like that. Just because he challenged a trash who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination? I won't accept this. I refuse to accept this. Right. Cao Xun stood up once more. He looked at Zhang Xuan savagely. Zhang Xuan, you haven't won yet. You scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination and caused a student's cultivation to go berserk. As long as this matter is reported to the teacher guild, after a thorough investigation, you will be stripped of your teaching license as well. Zhang Xuan might have scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination, but that was actually an internal examination within Hongshan Academy and wasn't authoritative. Even so, if the matter was reported upwards to the teacher guild, and once the matter was proven to be true, he could be stripped of his teaching license because of it as well. Furthermore, he had a case of a student's cultivation going berserk under his records. Just this itself crossed the bottom limits of a teacher. That's right, Zhang Xuan, you need not be gleeful over this. You might have gotten Cao Lo Shi's teaching license revoked, but you won't keep yours for long either. I will report this matter up to the teacher guild right now and have them carry out an impartial adjudication on the matter. Upon hearing Cao Xun's angry roar, Shang Bin's eyes lit up and flames started to burn in them once more. The relationship between him and Zhang Xuan had already torn asunder. Now that the other party was proven to possess a strong backing, he probably wouldn't be able to live in peace in the academy anymore with him here. Thus, he could not allow Zhang Xuan off the hook. Furthermore, even the goddess was speaking up for him now. If he allowed himself to be beaten without making a move, how could he lift his head in the future? Shang Bin glared at Zhang Xuan as cold intent emanated from his gaze. Aren't you incredible? Liu Yang's trust level in you exceed 60. The Wang clan urges you to accept Wang Tao. Things might be going well for you now, but let's see how you will fare after you lose your teaching license. Let's see what rights do you have to remain in Hongshan Academy and what rights do you have to teach your students. Zhang Xuan Lo Shi's capabilities and morals are indeed doubtful. Associate Master Teacher Huang Yu, Elden Mo, the words that the both of them speak of are true. This Zhang Lo Shi has driven the cultivation of a student berserk, and he has scored a 0 in the previous teacher qualification examination as well. I hope that the guild can handle this matter impartially and rid the academy of this cancerous tumor. In an instant, Elder Shang Chen regained the glow on his face with a straightened and dignified stature. He spoke. He might not be able to save Cao Xun, but he would not allow Zhang Xuan to get away scot-free either. Chapter 74, The Education Bureau has falsified results. This. Hearing the howling of the three, Elder Mo and Huang Yu glanced at one another before turning to look at Zhang Xuan. If what they said was true, the teacher guild would have to look into the matter. If the results of the investigation were in line with their claims, it was quite likely for this Zhang Lo Shi to be stripped of his teaching license. Seems like I have underestimated them. They are also skilled at using rules to their advantage. He didn't expect that after suffering so many consecutive blows, they would still be able to make a counterattack. Zhang Xuan frowned. It seemed that regardless which world one was in, some things never changed. If a despicable person were to lay their fangs on someone, they could only await their death. To speak of the truth, the mess that his previous self had left him was indeed troublesome to deal with. If the academy didn't bring it up, he would be safe and he could continue on conducting his lessons. On the other hand, if the academy decided to bring it up, they could report it to the teacher guild and he would face the danger of having his teaching license revoked. If he was stripped of his teaching license, his situation would not be any better than Cao Sun. Thus, no matter what, he mustn't let them succeed. However, it was a fact that he had scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination, and he did indeed send a student's cultivation berserk. This was the doing of his previous self, and he was unable to undo it even if he wanted to. That is to say, the mess that his previous self left him with was potentially his downfall. Even if he was able to nurture powerful students through the Library of Heaven's Path from today onwards, it would still be difficult for him to become a master teacher and earn the trust of others. He must find a way to resolve the problem. Rubbing his globula, Zhang Xuan felt helpless. His transcension was something he had no power over, and he was unable to decide the timeline where he would transcend into. Besides, if not for the failings of his previous self, he would be unable to transcend over as well. Could he just stand idly as they report the incident up to the teacher guild and have his teaching license revoked? Absolutely not. Aren't I unable to explain the reason behind the sudden surge in my strength? What a coincidence. I can make use of this. Just as he was at a loss of what to do, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind and an incredible idea popped into his head. Looking at Shang Chen and Shang Bin once more, the corners of his lips crept upwards. Since neither of you are willing to leave a path for me, I will be apologizing in advance then. Zhang Xuan, aren't you gleeful? Let's see how you can continue being so gleeful after you are summoned to the teacher guild. Sensing Elder Mo and Huang Yu's hesitation, Shang Bin laughed in anticipation. However, before his laughter could come to an end, he caught sight of Zhang Xuan. His hands were behind his back and he looked over hesitatingly, with dilemma reflected in his gaze. There seemed to be something bothering his mind, and he was contemplating whether he should speak of it or not. Why? You want to beg for mercy? Seeing Zhang Xuan behaving in such a manner, exultation filled Shang Bin. However, it's too late now. Beg for mercy? Zhang Xuan shook his head. You're thinking too much about it. I am just considering whether I should speak of it or not. Sigh. At this point, he sighed. His frustration and pain, as well as sorrow and dilemma, could be felt from his sigh. All in all, it was clear from his sigh that worries plagued his mind, and that he was a sorrowful man with a story behind his back. Speak of it? Speak of what? Unsure about what he was up to, Shang Bin frowned. Forget it, since that is the case. Ignoring his words, Zhang Xuan shook his head with a bewailing look on his face. He hesitated for a moment longer before speaking. Initially, as colleagues and fellow teachers, for the sake of the reputation of the academy, even if you have done something overboard, I should keep the big picture in mind and let it go. From the looks of it now. At this point, with his hands behind his back, his eyes gazed upwards, seemingly filled with pain. What do you mean? Seeing him sigh and shake his head, the attention of the crowd focused on him. Shang Bin and Shang Chen exchanged gazes, unsure of what that fellow was up to. What are you putting on an act for? You are about to be fired at any moment now. The fact won't change no matter how superb your acting is. I think he is just intentionally spouting bullshit to divert our attention. Don't be fooled by him. Shang Bin harumphed. Scoring 0 for the teacher qualification examination and making a student go berserk were facts about him that everyone in the academy knew. No matter what he did, it was impossible for him to clean the stain off his name. So what if you are eloquent? You are unable to deny these facts. Even if you try to deny it, there are archives of your doings. Let's see how you can round up your story then. Master Zhang, is there something that is bothering your mind? Elder Mo and I are here, so feel free to speak up. Huang Yu said. Indeed. Zhang Xuan looked at the other party in commendation as he nodded his head. Putting on an act for so long, what he had been waiting for were these words. Now that she had finally posed the question, he could proceed with the story. Actually, I didn't want to expose this. Zhang Xuan shook his head bitterly and a sorrowful expression overlaid his face. Taking 2 steps over to the strength measuring rock pillar in the center of the hall, he clenched his fist and sent it straight at the pillar. Weng. Light flashed on it and a string of number floated into appearance. 55 ding. He only used half of his strength, but after recultivating the first 3 dans of his cultivation technique, the Zenki in his body became even purer, causing his 49 ding of strength to rise slightly. 55 ding? Pixie-Rum Pinnacle? If he possesses the strength of a Pixie-Rum Pinnacle, then why does the examination reflect his strength as Zenki Realm? Despite hearing from Bai Xiaoan that Zhang Xuan was stronger than him and the crowd had already prepared themselves mentally for it, they were still filled with disbelief upon seeing how much strength he held beneath his fists. Gasps of shock floated in the room as the lower jaws of everyone in the room seemed to be falling to the floor. Fighter 6 Dan Pixie Realm. For every Aku point broken through, one's strength would be increased by 1 ding. Most people only ended up opening 30 to 40 Aku points in their lives. Even at Pixie Realm Pinnacle, their strength didn't reach such heights. To possess such strength with just a single fist, this clearly showed that he had reached Pixie Realm Pinnacle. But the examination he had undergone before the break clearly showed that he only had the strength of a Fighter 3 Dan Zenki Realm Pinnacle for his strength to jump several realms in the duration of a break. This was impossible. This was unheard of, even with the most incredible geniuses in the history of the kingdom. Bewildered, everyone looked at him as they awaited his explanation. During the examination that was conducted before the break, I was only Zenki Realm. I'm sure everyone is curious to know how I became a Pixie Realm expert all of a sudden. After taking in everyone's reaction, Zhang Xuan slowly explained. Actually, my cultivation didn't soar within just a week. Just like everyone else, I trained through the conventional method. Even though my strength did not reach 50 ding before the break, I wasn't too far off from it. You already possessed such strength before the break? No, that can't be right. Back then, during the teacher qualification examination, your cultivation realm was evaluated to be. Halfway through his words, clan head Wang Hong suddenly paused. A thought flashed through his mind and he continued, Hongshan Academy's teacher qualification examination is held under private conditions, and the results of individual teachers are released by the Education Bureau. One wouldn't know how another fares in the examination other than through the results released by the Education Bureau. That means the examination results of you possessing the cultivation level of Zenki realm from the Education Bureau is not true. Hearing his words, everyone came to a realization. Regardless of whether it was his teacher qualification examination results or his level of cultivation, they were evaluated and released by the Education Bureau during the examination. No one else was at the scene. That is to say, it was highly possible that the Education Bureau falsified the results. Center of eyebrows, if a despicable person were to lay their fangs on someone, they can only await their death. Translating literally, if a despicable person were to bite you, their fangs will sink into your bones. It describes the scenario where one is unable to redress themselves of their accusations from another. Chapter 75, Shang Chen pukes blood. Before, when I discussed several questions in the teacher qualification examination with Zhang Loshi, not only was he able to answer them clearly, he was able to come up with 7 to 8 answers for each of them. Furthermore, I was unable to come up with some of the answers he proposed. His comprehensive knowledge is indeed worthy of respect. Back then, I was puzzled over how he was unable to score a single mark in the simple teacher qualification examination. Turns out that the results being released were falsified. Shen Bairu suddenly recalled something and interjected. Rage could be seen in her beautiful eyes. Yesterday night, she tested Zhang Xuan and the other party managed to answer her questions easily. Back then, she thought that it was weird. Now, upon hearing the conversation, she came to a realization. He must have answered those questions correctly, but the Education Bureau didn't give him the marks for it. That was to say, there was nothing wrong with his paper, but the teacher from the Education Bureau marking his paper gave him 0 marks. Why? Why did he do so? It is no wonder that Zhang Loshi refuses to speak up. After all, you are all colleagues. If you were to reveal the truth, not only will it sunder the relationship among you all, it will affect the reputation of the academy as well. Just for this, he is willing to carry the burden of being labeled as trash. The more clan head Wang Hong pondered about the matter, the more he comprehended and came to a realization of the situation. Didn't you see how Zhang Loshi was hesitating just a moment ago over revealing the truth? If it wasn't for him being forced to a corner, he might very well have concealed this secret deep in his heart for the rest of his life. Even if he was misunderstood by everyone else, he would bear this burden silently within. In fact, despite all of your efforts to oppress him, all he did was to display his cultivation without explaining a thing. We even had to guess the details of what happened. What was an exemplary role model? This was. What was a non-materialistic and noble teacher? This was. Once the issue of the bias of the academy were to spread out, everyone will start to doubt the authenticity of the results of the academy's teacher qualification examination, and uncertainty will be cast over the other teacher's ability to teach. If that's the case, the academy will descend into chaos. He would rather be misunderstood by others and bear the burden of it by himself silently than to speak of it. This magnanimity and selflessness. An elder from the Wang clan got more and more agitated as he spoke. To think that there would be such a noble teacher in the world. It was laughable that we even thought that he was incapable of anything, and that he was a useless trash. As they spoke, the furious eyes of the crowd turned towards Elder Shang Chen. Look at him, then look at yourself. You are both teachers, but why was there such a gap between the conduct of you two? Zhang Loshi valued friendship and he would rather take all the insults by himself than to betray his own colleagues. Yet you all. Shang Chen was about to go frenzied. The heck? What was going on? What falsifying results? What value friendship? You were indeed Zenki realm the previous time, and your written paper is a mess. Not getting a single mark at all was perfectly normal given those standards. I personally reviewed the papers myself, so it is impossible for a mistake to occur. How did it turn into me oppressing you? Zhang Xuan, you are really despicable. I dare you to clarify everything up. Elder Shang Chen only felt a mouthful of fresh blood swirling in his mouth, ready to spurt out at any moment. Zhang Xuan was shocked upon seeing such a commotion break out. Actually, what I meant to say is that the Education Bureau made a mistake while marking the examinations. Why did the situation get so out of control? All of your imaginations are way too wild. However, I kind of like the way things are going. There should at least be a reason for me to oppress him. As the head of the Education Bureau, an elder of the academy, there's no reason for me to oppress a low-level teacher. As expected of the head of Education Bureau, Elder Shang Chen swiftly found a dissonance in the situation. There was always a motive and reason behind every action. Given his esteemed identity, there was no reason for him to scheme against an ordinary teacher. Does anything more need to be said about the situation? Your grandson, Shang Bin, wishes to aim for the position of the star teacher of the younger generation, but due to the existence of Zhang Loshi, who possesses an incredible level of cultivation and capability at such a young age, he is unlikely to emerge victorious over him. Thus, in order to prevent such a situation from occurring, you decided to eliminate him from the race. The one who spoke this time was Elder Mo. The more he spoke, the more furious he got, to the point that his beard was being blown into the air by his breath. I might not have concrete proof on this incident, but I have been looking over the situation today from the start to the end. The Enlightenment will trial, the bet and the oppression. Shang Chen, you are indeed incredible. To think that I was friends with you for so many years. I, Mo Xiang, must truly be blind. Elder Mo viewed villainous acts and villains with contempt. Due to the words of the other party, he made the journey here today to clean up the scums of the teaching circle, yet all he saw was Elder Shang using all kinds of methods to oppress Zhang Xuan Loshi. On the other hand, Shang Loshi kept using facts to prove his innocence. Wasn't it clear that there was a problem here? If even this much was insufficient to prove anything, then wouldn't that mean that I, Mo Xiang, was blind? I can also testify that I saw Elder Shang Chen intentionally oppressing Zhang Loshi with my own eyes. For him to do it so apparently before us, who knows what kinds of methods he resorts to behind our backs. One really can't judge a person by his cover. To think that the head of the Education Bureau would commit such atrocities for his grandson, he is a beast. The moment Elder Mo opened his mouth, many people started to chirp in, indignant in Zhang Xuan's stead. Elder Shang Chen felt faint-headed and he was on the verge of going crazy. I really didn't oppress him, it's just that he trampled on my dignity today. That's why I am finding trouble with him. If I said that I didn't know much about him before today, only that his standards as a teacher was inadequate, would you all believe me? However, judging by the furious expression of everyone else, he knew that there was no use trying to explain his way out of it. The current him was as though mud had fallen into his pants. It was feces regardless of whether it was true or not. Turning around to look at the one who started all these, Zhang Xuan. His hands were still behind his back and a bewailing expression covered his face, as though he was unwilling to reveal this secret. The heck you were unwilling. This was all because of your bullshit. You were the one who were incapable and scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination. Why did it suddenly turn into our Education Bureau falsifying your results and me oppressing you? How was this incident, in any way, related to me or the Education Bureau? Unable to suppress it any longer, the fresh blood welling in his chest spurted forth. To think that you still have to cheek to vomit blood after committing such shameful actions. If it was me, I would have long crashed my head on a pillar to commit suicide. How shameless. How did someone like you become the head of the Education Bureau of Hongshan Academy? Not to mention, he is an elder. There is a problem with his character. I think that we should revoke his teaching license. Upon seeing him spurt blood, not only did no one sympathize with him, their words grew even harsher. How did this happen? Shang Bin and Cao Sun were dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, the winning ticket was in their hands and they were about to achieve victory. How did the situation get reversed so suddenly? What the heck was going on? After spurting out a mouthful of blood, Elder Shang Chen felt more comfortable and his head cleared up as well. He gazed at the surroundings and his hand trembled. Then, looking at Zhang Xuan with undisguised hatred, he said, I am unable to vindicate myself of the claim that you scoring a 0 in the teacher qualification examination is oppression on my part. However, what about the student who went berserk? This incident happened in your classroom. How are you going to explain it then? You might have millions of reasons and excuses, but a student going berserk in your class is an irrefutable truth. Let's see how you will explain that. Zhang Xuan's heartbeat. Chapter 76. The student who went berserk. The student's cultivation going berserk was something that had already happened and cannot be changed. No matter how much you try to argue otherwise, no matter how glib your tongue is, it is all futile. Elder Shang Chen knew that no one would believe him no matter how hard he tried to explain the incident with the teacher qualification examination. Even if he were to produce the papers, others would just accuse him of falsifying the papers as well as such. He decided to bring this entire matter out of the way for now. Zhang Xuan didn't know how to respond to his words. Are you trying to deny the incident? Bai Loshi, go and invite Zhao Yanfeng from Luxun Loshi's classroom. Elder Shang Chen said. Zhao was the teacher on duty whereas Zhao Yanfeng was the student whose cultivation was driven berserk by Zhang Xuan previously. How did this student end up in Luxun Loshi's class? Upon hearing Shang Chen's arrangement, everyone looked at him in puzzlement. Even Zhang Xuan was carrying a face of bewilderment, based on the memories of his previous self. Ever since that fellow's cultivation went berserk, he had never been to his class as his previous self was too ashamed to look into the matter. He didn't know that he had gone to Luxun Loshi's class. Besides, who was Luxun Loshi? Hongshan Academy's #1 star teacher. Even Elder Mo had said that there was a high possibility of him becoming an associate master teacher in the future. There were countless students who wished to come under his tutelage. So why would he pick someone whose cultivation had once went berserk as his student? Upon going berserk, Zhao Yanfeng's fundamentals are damaged and originally, he had intended to withdraw from the academy. However, he was noticed by Luxun Loshi and eventually, he was accepted as his student after a few months of guidance and nursing. Not only is the damage he sustained from going berserk gone, his cultivation has also reached 5-1 down Juxi realm pinnacle, ready to break through at any moment. Elder Shang Chen said, accepted as Luxun Loshi's student? His luck is way too good. To be able to remove the damage he sustained from going berserk within a short period of time, even inducing a rise in his cultivation level, Luxun Loshi is indeed incredible. Upon hearing Elder Shang's words, the crowd was astonished. Going berserk created great damage to a cultivator, and it was very easy for one's fundamentals to be wrecked in the midst of it. Cultivation was just like building a house. If the fundamentals weren't in place, it was difficult for the building to rise up high. To be able to treat the damage a student sustained from his cultivation going berserk so quickly and even pull him up to Juxi realm pinnacle, this Luxun Loshi was indeed as formidable as the rumors put him out to be. Not too long later, the teacher on duty, Bai Loshi, returned with a student behind him. Around 16 to 17-year-old, he had a slim build, but spirited eyes. This was the unlucky student who was taught by his previous self Zhao Yanfeng. Elder Shang. Walking straight up to Elder Shang upon entering the room, he was bewildered to see so many people in here. Zhao Yanfeng, do you recognize this person? Elder Shang pointed at Zhang Xuan. Zhao Yanfeng turned around and noticed Zhang Xuan. His calm face immediately became agitated. Unknowingly, he clenched his fist tightly, as though trying to suppress the rage in his heart. He is my previous teacher, Zhang Xuan. These words seemed to have been squeezed out through gritted teeth. Through his actions, it was clear to see that he still held great resentment against Zhang Xuan. However, that was to be expected when a student learns from a teacher. He places his trust in him unconditionally. That was equal to entrusting his fate as a cultivator into his hands. If the teacher didn't take responsibility for him, that would be equal to ruining his student's entire future. His previous self caused the other party's cultivation to go berserk, nearly destroying his future as a cultivator. This made Zhao Yanfeng extremely hostile against him. If it wasn't for his position as a teacher, he might have already made a move on him. I've heard that he had once caused you to go berserk, is that true? Seeing Zhao Yanfeng behaving in such a manner, delight surged through Elder Shang's mind as he continued to question him. That's true. If not for Lu Xunloshi saving me, I might already be a cripple. Zhang Yanfeng said. Great. Upon hearing his confirmation, Elder Shang didn't continue posing questions to him. Instead, he turned to look at Elder Mo and Huang Yi with a savage expression. Associate Master Teacher Huang, Elder Mo, you should have heard the conversation. Let's not touch on the matter of the teacher qualification examination first. I believe that one day, the truth of the incident will come to light. Instead, let's touch on the matter of him causing the cultivation of his student to go berserk. The victim is here, and if you all have any doubts, you all can continue to question him. Despite being a teacher, he harmed his own student. Just this by itself forms the basis for his teaching license to be revoked. Huang Yu and Elder Mo looked at one another with brows tightly knitted together. What the other party said was true. The responsibility of a teacher was to clarify doubts and lead his students down the right path. Causing a student's cultivation to go berserk was one of the greatest taboo a teacher could commit. Even if they wanted to help Zhang Loshi, there was nothing that they could do. Zhang Loshi, what else do you have to say for yourself? If you feel indignant, you can argue your way out. However, you will have to get past this Zhao Yanfeng first. Seeing the two of them remaining silent, Elder Shang Chen finally felt as though he had returned the humiliation Zhang Xuan had caused him back to him. He turned around to look at him mockingly. So what if you were powerful? So what if you have won the Enlightenment will trial? As long as this weakness stays with you, you will lose your teaching license. Without that amulet to protect you, I will be able to do as I please with you. Even if I were to kill you, no one will say anything. Elder Shang Chen had brought the victim over, and the victim had already ascertained it to be true. The eyes of the crowd gathered onto Zhang Xuan to see how he would respond. Just when everyone thought that he would try to explain the situation and the reasons behind the incident, the young man simply shrugged and said, indignant? What do I have to feel indignant about? It is true that I caused his cultivation to go berserk. I knew that you would try to argue your way out. However, Zhao Yanfeng will recount the incident back then clearly. Elder Shang Chen thought that the other party would try to defend himself, so he was prepared to refute him. However, before he could finish his words, he suddenly came to a realization and looked at Zhang Xuan in disbelief. You admit to it? This to think that you would admit to it so readily. Could it be that he had prepared something beneath his sleeves? He was already frightened of the other party at this point after getting slapped in his face consecutively. There was already a trauma at the back of his mind. Of course I would admit to it after all. Why would I not admit to something that I have done? Zhang Xuan nodded his head. Causing a student's cultivation to go berserk was a doing of his previous self. It was impossible for him to argue his way out of it. Rather than wasting time arguing about it here, he might as well just come out clean. The crowd was stunned. His admittance meant that all that was said were facts. If so, the teacher guild would be able to establish this case and strip him of his teaching license. Besides, driving a student's cultivation berserk wasn't something to be proud about. To speak of it so brazenly, where did your self-confidence come from? It is good that you have admitted to it. Associate Master Teacher Huang, Elder Mo, the both of you should have heard it as a teacher. Not only does he feel no remorse over causing a student to go berserk, he even talks about it so brazenly. Such a person is unworthy of being a teacher. Shang Chen roared, but before he could finish his words, Zhang Xuan stepped forward and waved his hand. Enough. How big of an issue is this for you to keep babbling on about it? You are already advanced in age, and yet you still get excited over minor affairs so easily. Aren't you worried that your heart might be unable to take it, causing you to die just like this? You, Elder Shang Chen staggered. You are the one who gets excited easily. Your whole damn family gets excited easily. Zhao Yanfeng, you have been studying under Lu Xunloshi? You should have improved considerably. Come, show me your punching routine. Can't be bothered with the furious Elder Shang. Zhang Xuan turned his gaze towards the young man. Chapter 77, Innate Sealed Meridians. Show his punching routine. Upon hearing Zhang Xuan's words, everyone became stunned. Everyone is concerned about you causing a student's cultivation to go berserk, and yet here you are, trying to get him to execute a punching routine. What are you trying to do? A peculiar expression appeared on Elder Shang Chen's face. Punching routine? We are in the midst of investigating the matter of you driving your student's cultivation berserk. Can you not change the topic? Cough cough. Master Zhang, I think it would be better for you to explain the details behind him going berserk. Perhaps your teachings may not be wrong, and it is due to some other reasons. Huang Yu couldn't help but to remind him of it. There were many possible reasons behind a person's cultivation going berserk. It could be due to the misguidance of the teacher, or the student comprehending the teachings of his teacher inaccurately and cultivating through the wrong method. If it was the latter, the teacher was still partly responsible for the incident, but it wouldn't come down to a punishment as harsh as stripping him of his teaching license. This teacher here, back then, I cultivated based on the method Zhang Loshi imparted me without changing a single bit of it. In the end, my cultivation still went berserk, after which, when I consulted Lu Xunloshi about it, he said that the cultivation method is wrong and that one's cultivation would definitely go berserk if one were to cultivate according to it. Aware of her thoughts, Zhao Yanfeng said, he still carried deep hatred towards Zhang Xuan, knowing that this was an opportunity to strip him of his teaching license. There was no way he would allow it to slip by him. Master Zhang, upon hearing the victim say such words, there were no other possibilities that Huang Yu was able to come up with to absolve him from blame as such. She could only look towards him helplessly. Try executing a punching routine. Let me see if you have improved. Ignoring the persuasion of the other party, Zhang Xuan continued to gaze at the young man. Do as Zhang Loshi says, try executing a punching routine first. Upon his insistence, even though Huang Yu was perplexed over what he was trying to do, she still turned around to instruct Zhao Yanfeng. So, yes. He might not know of Huang Yu's identity, but judging from how respectful Elder Shang Chen treated her, Zhao Yanfeng dared not disobey her instructions, nodding his head. He walked to the center of the hall. Hugh. The wind whistled along with his forceful fists. That fellow might be young, but the control over his strength was not bad, and he was adept in his battle technique as well. He could be considered a good bud. Not bad. Looks like Lu Xunloshi has really rid him of the damage he sustained when he went berserk. It is truly not bad for him to possess this level of strength at such an age. Most of those who were in the room were experts on cultivation. Upon seeing Zhao Yanfeng's punches, they nodded their head in approval. Elder Shang Chen secretly sneaked a glance towards Zhang Xuan, since Zhang Xuan was the one who instructed Zhao Yanfeng to execute his punching routine. He thought that he would be carefully analyzing his punching routine, so as to come up with an excuse for himself, yet this fellow had closed his eyes, and a tranquil expression appeared on his face. What is he up to? Question marks appeared on Elder Shang Chen's head. It couldn't be that this fellow knew that he would be unable to find any evidence or excuse to absolve himself of blame and go insane. Is this enough? Very quickly, the punching routine came to an end. Upon seeing that the Zhang Loshi that he hated had his eyes closed, not even looking at his punching routine, Zhao Yanfeng was on the verge of erupting from the accumulated rage as he spat out these words through gritted teeth. Zhang Xuan opened his eyes. Alright, let's stop wasting time, since you have already admitted to causing Zhao Yanfeng's cultivation to go berserk with your guidance, and he himself can testify for it. Then why don't you just confess to your crime? This way, we can skip on a lot of trouble. Afraid that the situation would go awry the longer this was dragged on for, he said. Calm down. Zhang Xuan interrupted his words, sweeping the surroundings with his gaze. He said, since all of you are interested in listening to my explanation, then I will explain the incident to you all. Everyone's attention jolted and focused on him, curious to hear what he would say. Even Zhao Yanfeng couldn't resist turning his gaze over. Actually, I intentionally drove his cultivation berserk. Zhang Xuan's voice echoed in the room. Ah? Intentionally? Everyone stood dumbfounded in their spot. What kind of joke was this? There's no way to go back. Once you say such words, you will surely be stripped of your teaching license like this. Ha ha. Elder Shang Chen didn't expect that the fellow before him, after making so many mysterious and baffling actions, would actually confess to it so brazenly, even phrasing his words in such a manner his eyes radiated with excitement. It is good that you have confessed to it. As a teacher, to intentionally guide a student erroneously and putting him in danger, you have truly transgressed beyond what a teacher should ever do. If he isn't stripped of his teaching license, it will be hard to appease the furious masses. Associate Master Teacher Huang, Elder Mo, there should be no problems this time, right? Huang Yu stared at Zhang Xuan helplessly. His admittance left her without a single means to help him. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Zhao Yanfeng clenching his fist tightly and gritting his teeth. He glared at Zhang Xuan with undisguised hatred reflecting in his eyes as he said, I wonder how I offended Zhang Loshi, for you to find the need to push me off the cliff. I am your student, but you intentionally guided me erroneously, causing my cultivation to go berserk. What kind of resentment do you hold against me? Everyone else seems to have thought of the same point, and one by one, their gazes turned towards Zhang Xuan. Clan head Wang Hong was also starting to contemplate whether having his daughter and son to come under the tutelage of this teacher was a correct choice. So what if his theories were profound and he was proficient in teaching others? What if he suddenly threw a temper and intentionally taught them erroneously? If so, the lives of his children would be doomed. A fight to one Dan going berserk could still be saved. However, the more advanced one's cultivation was, the harder it would be to save them when their cultivation went berserk. Ignoring the gazes of the crowd, Zhang Xuan placed his hands behind his back in the gaze of one who was unable to comprehend the world reflected in his eyes. Sighing, he lamented, sigh. Looks like you have yet to understand. Understand? A dark line appeared across Zhao Yanfeng's face. If it wasn't for his weak strength, he would have dashed forward to bash him. Understand what? You intentionally drove my cultivation berserk and you still expect me to understand? Understand what? Understand death? Do none of you really comprehend? Zhang Xuan looked at Huang Yu, Elder Mo and the rest of the crowd. Comprehend? The one sentence left the two of them dumbfounded. You intentionally guided someone erroneously? What did you expect us to comprehend from that? Comprehend how you played your student to his death? Alright, since none of you can tell, then allow me to explain. Zhang Xuan shook his head, sweeping the faces of the crowd. He said, I wonder if any of you have heard of the physique known as innate sealed meridians? Innate sealed meridians? Huang Yu frowned, then, recalling something, she said, I have heard of it. This isn't an innate body type, but a type of disability. Those who possess this type of physique have many points of constrictions along his meridians, as though a river blocked by silt and mud. Zenki is unable to flow through them easily. Even if one is able to cultivate, there would be a limit to their achievements. Fight to 1 Dan would normally be their upper limit, and Fight 2 Dan is an impossible goal for them. Hearing this explanation, the crowd nodded their heads. Innate sealed meridians might be a rare physical condition, but there were cases of it as teachers and leaders of powerful factions. Most of them have heard of such a physique. Zhang Loshi spoke of innate sealed meridians. Can it be? Moxiang Loshi suddenly thought of something and he turned to look at Zhang Xuan with widened eyes. Indeed, Zhao Yanfeng possesses this kind of physique. Zhang Xuan nodded his head. Me? I possess innate sealed meridians? Zhao Yanfeng was unable to believe it. That is impossible. I have never felt shackled when I cultivate, so how can I be afflicted with innate sealed meridians? Never felt shackled? Zhang Xuan looked over with a meaningful smile on his face. Then, let me ask you, before your cultivation went berserk, did you feel short of breath when you cultivated in the past? Every time you gather spiritual energy, did you feel as though your entire body was being severed apart? How did you know? Initially, Zhao Yanfeng did not pay any heed to Zhang Xuan's words, thinking that he was just spouting nonsense. However, upon hearing the latter part of his words, his eyes narrowed and his body froze. Chapter 78, I will make you break through in an hour. The words that the other party spoke of were completely true before his cultivation went berserk. He did meet with such a problem. Gathering spiritual energy was an exceptionally difficult task for him, and he would feel pain as though his body was ripping apart. All along, he thought it was due him cultivating in the wrong manner. Could it be that it was really due to him possessing innate sealed meridian? It was said that one who possesses innate sealed meridian would feel as though their meridians were shackled, causing their blockages in their breathing. If one were to try to forcefully cultivate, it would generate pain as though their body was being ripped apart. This breathing probably refers to their body. However, he had never told of it to anyone, not even to Zhang Xuan when he was his student. In fact, even his parents were oblivious to it, so how did he know it? Upon seeing Zhao Yanfeng's expression, everyone shuddered. Could it be that what he said is true? Stop trying to force logic in here. So what if Zhao Yanfeng possesses the physique of innate sealed meridian? What does it have to do with his cultivation going berserk? Elder Shang Chen harumphed. Innate sealed meridians was a disability that one was born with. There was no way to cure it, and those who possessed such problems were fated to be unable to cultivate. Even if Zhao Yanfeng had this kind of problem, he would only lack the potential to become an expert at most. There was no need to intentionally drive his cultivation berserk. You think that it has nothing to do with it? Zhang Xuan chuckled softly. Then, let me ask you, what are the symptoms of one's cultivation going berserk? Going berserk? One's internal energy will go on rampage and become uncontrollable, causing one to lose his sense of self and going into a deranged condition. At this point, Elder Shang Chen stopped abruptly. His eyes widened into perfect circles in disbelief. It can't be that. You are trying to use the symptoms of berserk to break through the constrictions in his meridians so as to dispel his innate sealed meridians? How is this possible? He wasn't the only one who arrived at this conclusion. The others have also thought of it, and their mouth opened wide in shock. When one goes berserk, the energy within their body goes out of control. It was true that one was able to execute strength several times beyond what one was capable of usually, but that was a state of derangement. It was easy for one's cultivation to be completely crippled. No one had tried it, and no one dared to actually try to use berserk as a means to overcome innate sealed meridians. Are you for it? If that's true, then you are way too bold. Such a notion will revolutionize the entire world of cultivation. Indeed. Zhang Xuan nodded his head. Then, he turned to Zhao Yanfeng and questioned, let me ask you, ever since your cultivation went berserk, have you felt the sensation of your body ripping apart whenever you cultivate? This Zhao Yanfeng's body trembled stiffly. With a quivering voice, he replied, I haven't. Back then, he felt intense pain whenever he cultivated, as though his body was going to explode. Yet, after he went berserk, he had never felt such a sensation anymore previously. He attributed it to Lu Xunloxi's guidance. Could that really be the case? When going berserk, the internal energy of one flowing through his body will be incomparably violent, allowing them to exert a might beyond what they are usually capable of. Even though it is incapable of resolving innate sealed meridians, it can alleviate the situation, allowing one's spiritual energy to flow through. Back then, when I induced your cultivation to go berserk, I was trying to solve the hidden problems within your body initially. I had prepared some steps afterward to allow your cultivation to go on more smoothly, so that you would be able to reach greater heights. Yet not only did you leave without bidding me farewell, you even viewed me with hostility. At this point, Zhang Xuan shook his head and sighed. Solitude reflected in his gaze. Ever since Zhao Yanfeng awakened from his berserk state, he had never visited to Zhang Xuan's classroom. Even so, he treated him as his mortal enemy, spreading malicious rumors about him everywhere. Even if Zhang Xuan were to seek him, the latter would not have trusted him. Seeing Zhang Loxi's expression, everyone could almost feel the burden and pain he felt in his heart. However, under such pressure, he didn't try to explain himself. Rather, he shouldered it silently, bearing with the mocking of others. In an instant, the figure of Zhang Xuan grew massively in their heart. Rubbish. How can that be possible? Besides, even if it was true, if you explained the situation to him clearly beforehand, Zhao Yanfeng wouldn't have left. Elder Shang Chen gritted his teeth. If one was able to control the process, then it wouldn't be called berserk. If I were to inform him of it beforehand, given Zhao Yanfeng's fearful character, do you think that he would be willing to take the risk? Zhang Xuan flung his sleeves. One would become uncontrollable upon going berserk. If one knew that they will go berserk during their cultivation, they would start to feel fearful and cower from it subconsciously, making it hard for them to successfully go berserk. No matter how well you put it, you cannot prove that him going berserk had resolved the issue of his innate sealed body. In any case, I don't believe your words. After hesitating for a moment, Elder Shang Chen harumphed. I know that this incident is much too unorthodox and shocking, but it doesn't matter whether you all believe it or not. Zhang Xuan turned around to look at Zhao Yanfeng. I've taken a look just now and you have already reached Phi 1 Danjuxi realm pinnacle. You are just a step after breaking through. If you were to train normally, how long do you think it will take for you to break through? 6 months. Lu Loxi told me that if I were to put in effort, within half a year, it is possible for me to break into Phi 2 Danshan realm. He was still a little doubtful to the words of this Zhang Loxi, but his tone had become much more respectful and he answered his question seriously. Mo Loxi and clan head Wang Hong nodded their heads in agreement. They have seen Zhao Yanfeng execute his punching routine previously as well. Given their experience, they could tell that Lu Xunloxi's judgment was accurate. Zhao Yanfeng's talent could only be considered as average, and to be able to break through within half a year could be considered as good progress. Half a year? There's no need for that. I can help you break through within an hour. Zhang Xuan looked over. An hour? How is that possible? It is hard to tell whether he is even able to break through within half a year, and you said to help him break through in an hour? This, hearing Zhang Xuan's words, everyone went insane. None of them dared to believe his words. Cultivation, unlike eating or drinking, cannot satisfy one at one go. It has to be done a single step at a time. One can only progress after countless accumulation over time. Even for Zhao Yanfeng, who is already Juxi Realm 1 Dan Pinnacle, if he isn't able to control the spiritual energy adeptly, he is unable to open up his Danshan. This accumulation is an extremely slow process without accumulation of experience over time. It is impossible for him to succeed. Yet, Zhang Xuan claimed that he is able to do it within an hour. Even if you wanted to brag, you shouldn't brag about something so impossible. Be careful of your nose reaching the heavens. Why, you all don't believe me? Ignoring the shocked crowd, the corners of Zhang Xuan's mouth crept upwards as he continued gazing at the young man before him. Zhao Yanfeng was hesitant. He felt that what the other party said about him possessing innate sealed meridians was true, but about helping him break through Phi 2-1 Dan in an hour, this was like a dream to him. If he was really able to break through Phi 2-1 Dan within an hour, then this Zhang Loshi was really way too incredible. That would also mean that his decision to induce his cultivation to go berserk to break through his innate sealed meridian was a success, as well as a correct decision. After all, why would a teacher who could help others break through their cultivation realm so easily lie about such a minor matter? Since he was able to come to this conclusion, others were able to as well. Each of every one of their gazes slowly gathered onto Zhang Xuan. I don't blame you for not believing in me after all. Your cultivation has gone berserk once upon listening to my words. Zhang Xuan flung his hand and a look of pity appeared in his eyes. However, if you pass by this opportunity, you will need to take half a year, or perhaps even longer. It's your own choice. Zhao Yanfeng stood on the spot with clenched fists after a period of time. He lifted his head and determination could be seen in his eyes. Zhang Loshi, I want to give it a try. Chapter 79. Teacher Acknowledgement Fever. Just as what Zhang Loshi said, the moment he passed by the opportunity, he would need to take a significantly longer period of time to break through. Once he was a single step behind of others. He would always be a step behind of others. He didn't want to be chasing after the footsteps of others all the time. He didn't really trust the words of the other party, but with so many teachers here, he doubted that this Zhang Loshi would cause his cultivation to go berserk once more. Good, I will rejoice over the decision you made. Nodding his head, Zhang Xuan's gaze swept around the surroundings before retrieving a box of silver needles. Then, he instructed, sit down with crossed legs. Don't allow your thoughts to wander. I will use the silver needles to help you open up your acupoints so as to increase the speed of your accumulation of spiritual energy. You just have to try to break into the Danshan realm. Alright. With his determination resolute, Zhao Yanfeng didn't hesitate for long before he sat down with crossed legs. Zhang Xuan walked forward and retrieving a single needle, he placed it into one of the acupoints of the other party at the same time. A surge of Zenki gushed in, as he cultivated the Heaven's Path divine art. His Zenki was as clear as mineral water the moment it entered the other party's body. The shackles in his acupoints were immediately broken through. The acupoints of an average cultivator were similar to small holes filled with silt, and the murky Zenki was similar to muddy water. It was impossible to wash their acupoints clean with Zenki filled with so much impurities. On the other hand, superior Zenki was equivalent to clear water, while others might not be able to wash their acupoints cleanly even with 2 years of effort. He was able to do it easily. The moment the acupoints were opened, the surrounding spiritual energy immediately gushed in frenziedly. Hoo. With hands as swift as the wind, he consecutively jabbed another 8 silver needles onto the body of the other party. The 9 silver needles opened 9 acupoints on Zhao Yanfeng's body. The spiritual energy that had been flowing like a small stream in his body instantaneously turned into a torrential river and gushed through his body before gathering at his spiritual sea. Boom. Zhao Yanfeng felt as though an explosion had happened in his brain. The withdrawn Danshan in his abdomen was broken through in an instant as though a massive basin. It accommodated all spiritual energy that came flowing in. Standing up abruptly, Zhao Yanfeng pressed his palm against the strength measuring rock pillar not too far away. Boom. 150 kilograms. Fighter 2 Dan Danshan Realm Primary Stage. Upon seeing the numbers float into appearance, Zhao Yanfeng was stunned initially. He thought that it would take at least half a year for him to successfully advance into the next realm, yet, with Zhang Loshi's assistance, he managed to succeed within a few moments. It seemed that it didn't even take an hour. Thank you, Zhang Loshi. All of the doubts Zhao Yanfeng had of Zhang Loshi cleared from his mind, and he immediately knelt before Zhang Xuan and kowtowed continuously. In this instant, from the depths of his heart, he was convinced that all the other party did was for his welfare. How could a teacher, who was able to help others break through so easily, teach erroneous theories and cause a student's cultivation to go berserk? To think that he doubted such a noble teacher, even insulting him. He was worse than a beast. He must have been blind then to leave this teacher before to acknowledge Luxun Loshi. If a chance presented itself, he would withdraw from his lessons and return back to him. He really broke through? To help a Phi 2-1 Dan successfully break through in slightly more than 10 minutes. Surely there's something wrong with my vision? How did he do it just by jabbing a few needles? While Zhao Yanfeng was feeling conflicted and remorseful, clan head Wang Hong, Elder Mo and the others who had taken that scene have their eyes widened and mouth agape as they felt the world around them crumbling. They thought that Zhang Xuan was just bragging and assumed that it was impossible for him to succeed yet. Viewing personally what they deemed impossible occurring, the striking visuals left them on the verge of tears. Looking at the other party once again, this time, their eyes were burning passionately. Back then, when they broke through one Dan, they had to go through numerous troubles and struggles, yet, looking at Zhao Yanfeng, he seems to have taken as much effort as it took to eat or drink. Why didn't they meet with Zhang Loshi back then? Zhang Loshi, please accept me as your student. Wang Yan, who came with Wang Tao and the others, walked forward and knelt before him. Back then, he thought that Luxun Loshi was the superior one, and thus, he didn't agree with the decision of the clan head and his grandfather yet. Upon seeing Zhang Loshi helping Zhao Yanfeng break through within 10 minutes or so, he was unable to suppress the temptation any longer. Zhang Xuan blinked his eyes. I know that Yan Er's talents are average, but I beseech Zhang Loshi not to reject him. The second elder from Wang clan walked out with a face full of smiles. He continued, as long as Zhang Loshi accepts him, I am willing to be your disciple as well. I'm sure that Zhang Loshi's name will spread far and wide upon accepting a Pixie Realm student. No one will dare to doubt you. Second elder, can you have some decency? To think that you would try to bargain and do a buy one get one free. How shameless. The Grand Elder flung his sleeves and looked over respectfully. Zhang Loshi, ignore them, the second elder is lacking in decorum. Cough cough. How about me? I am a Pixie Realm Pinnacle expert and I would like to acknowledge you as my teacher as well. If you find it inconvenient due to my identity as an elder of the Wang clan, I can always retire. What is there to compete about? Each of you are already old enough to be his grandfather, and yet you still want to acknowledge him as your teacher. Don't you all feel embarrassed? Not expecting the Grand Elder and Second Elder to act so shamefully, Clan Head Wang Hong reprimanded them. Upon being reprimanded of the clan head, the faces of the two flushed in embarrassment. Indeed, they were no longer young and their bone structure have already solidified. It wouldn't be an easy task for them to break through. Wang Tao and Wang Yan turned to look at the clan head in reverence. Do you see that? Our clan head has self-restraint and wits, being able to see through the crux of the problem with a glance. However, before they were done revering him, they saw clan head Wang Hong turning around to look at Zhang Xuan with the bundles of smile. Zhang Loshi, I am still young, just 42 this year. Can I acknowledge you as my master? Zhang Xuan, everyone else. Cough cough. Let's talk about the matter of acknowledging masters in the future. In the end, Zhang Xuan had to speak up to stabilize the chaotic situation. Turning towards Zhao Yanfeng once more, he asked, do you still think that I caused your cultivation to go berserk because I am incapable of teaching? I beg of Zhang Loshi to forgive me for repaying your grooming with ingratitude. Zhao Yanfeng hurriedly kowtowed to Zhang Xuan. Zhang Xuan nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, turning around to look at Elder Shang Chen, he asked, Elder Shang Chen, do you still have anything else that you would like to say? Elder Shang Chen's face stiffened. He was unable to explain the issue with the teacher qualification examination, and now that everyone believed that Zhang Loshi sending Zhao Yanfeng's cultivation berserk was to help him, what else could he say? His face was slapped on once more. Furthermore, it was the type that causes a swelling instantly. Impossible, impossible. How can he help others to break through so easily? By the side, Cao Xun seemed to have gone dim-witted. His eyes were filled with confusion. This Zhang Xuan Loshi had entered the academy at the same time as him, and all along, his results were superior to his. When did he become so incredible? Furthermore, to be able to help others break through so casually, even the elders and principal of the academy weren't capable of such a feat. How did he accomplish it? Cao Xun Loshi intentionally slandered his colleagues, proving that he is lacking in ethics. As a teacher, I will report this up to the teacher guild for them to revoke your teaching license. At the same time, the 100 god-slaying flogs will be carried out now. With the issue settled, Elder Mo waved his hands. Yes. Cao Xun gritted his teeth. Even though he was unwilling to accept it, he knew that his fate was already sealed. Shang Bin, as a teacher, for your own benefits, you intentionally framed another teacher. Your teaching license will be suspended until further notice. After dealing with Cao Xun, Elder Mo looked over at Shang Bin and Shang Chen. As for Shang Chen, as an elder, the head of the Education Bureau, not only did you not spare a consideration for other teachers, you intentionally made things difficult for them, even altering the results of the teacher qualification examination at your whim. You will be stripped of your position as an elder and the head of the Education Bureau. The issue will be reported to the teacher guild and a verdict will be passed down on your conduct. Chapter 80. How do I teach you? The elders from the teacher guild were of similar positions to the leaders from the Ministry of Education in Zhang Xuan's previous world. They possessed the authority to revoke the position of the teachers of an academy. Elder Mo, seeing how we were friends for so many years, please spare me. Upon hearing the punishment, Shang Chen hurriedly said. At this moment, he felt his world crumbling. He was the one who got Elder Mo here. The initial intention was to have him strip Zhang Xuan of his teaching license, yet he only managed to crush his own legs with the boulder he moved. In the end, he was the one who was fired. Can the situation not be so damned? It's all your fault, you spoiled brat. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Looking at Shang Bin, he couldn't help but want to rush forward to send 2 kicks towards him to alleviate his rage. If not for this fellow being so adamant to bring trouble onto Zhang Xuan, he wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Now, not only did the other party get away scot-free and he was relieved of his duty, most importantly of all, his reputation was in the gutters. It was to be expected that once the news of him oppressing other teachers and changing their results on a whim spread out, he would become a hated figure, once scorned by everyone else. He did not do it, but someone had to believe his words first. Of all people, you choose to do your own grandfather in. Spare you? Elder Shang, it is precisely because of our years of friendship that I have already spared you of your dignity. Otherwise, if I were to report you of oppressing your colleagues to the teacher guild, it is likely that you would be stripped of your teaching license as well. Elder Mo harumphed coldly. You better keep yourself in check from now on. Elder Shang knew what the other party was saying was true. Weakness surged through his body and he slumped onto the floor, sorrowful as though he had lost his parents. Shang Loshi, we have troubled you today. For such a scum to appear among the teachers is a negligence on the teacher guild's part. After dealing with the trio, Elder Mo turned to look at Zhang Xuan with an apologetic look. Don't worry about it. It is normal for 1 or 2 degenerates to appear occasionally. Zhang Xuan waved his hand to show that he wasn't bothered by it. Seeing his attitude, everyone felt impressed with him yet again. Did you see that? That is the magnanimity that a teacher should have. Great. Then I will be returning to the guild to settle these matters. I will make sure to give Zhang Loshi an explanation on the situation. After which, Elder Mo glared hatefully at Elder Shang Chen for a moment before turning around to leave. Zhang Loshi, let's go as well. You still have yet to teach me painting. At this moment, Cao Xun was being beaten to the point of nearing death. Upon seeing the situation here had been settled, Bei Agzon walked up to him with a grin. All right. Nodding his head, Zhang Xuan walked out of the Enlightenment Will Tower along with the rest. To tell the truth, he barely scraped past this situation safely. Were it not for the Wang clan, Bei Agzon and Huang Yu's timely arrivals, even if he could handle the situation, it would have taken him a lot of effort, especially with the matter regarding Zhao Yanfeng. Actually, he wasn't entirely truthful about his situation. What Zhao Yanfeng suffered from wasn't innate sealed meridians, but innate narrow meridians. Innate narrow meridians, using the words of his previous life, meant that while others are innate car lane, you are a bicycle track. With such narrow meridians, it was natural that he would feel his body ripping apart when spiritual energy flowed through. In fact, his speed of cultivation would slow significantly, creating an upper limit onto his future achievements. However, there was an inherent difference between it and innate sealed meridians. The former, innate sealed meridian, was similar to having all kinds of nails along one's path, blocking the flow of spiritual energy entirely. On the other hand, innate narrow meridians, even though one's meridians were narrow, spiritual energy was able to flow through it, allowing one to cultivate without a problem. His cultivation going berserk did widen his narrow meridians, allowing him to cultivate even more easily. That was precisely the reason why his cultivation soared, allowing him to reach Juxi Realm Pinnacle. However, that incident also caused tremendous damage to his body. Juxi Realm Pinnacle was already his limit, then it was impossible for him to break through. In order to make it up for the other party, Zhang Xuan made a move to help him break through. At the same time, he also cleared away the trauma his previous self had left in his body, killing two birds with one stone. At the very least, after this incident, no one would use this berserk incident against him anymore. As for how he successfully helped Zhao Yanfeng break through, actually the theory behind it was simple. After flipping through all the books in the Compendium Pavilion, he had already formed the 1 Dan, 2 Dan and 3 Dan of Heaven's Path divine art after cultivating it himself last night. He was well aware of the correct method to breaking through. Furthermore, given the superior qualities Enki in his body, it wasn't a difficult task for him to guide the other party to walk on a correct path to break through. From now on, I am no longer in danger of being expelled. With the burden off his heart, he heaved a sigh of relief. After transcending over, he had been in danger of expulsion even after he accepted several students. He still felt as though there were ominous clouds looming over him. However, at this moment, this threat had been entirely removed. Walking out of the Enlightenment World Tower, he gave permission for Wang Yan to listen in on his class, just like Wang Tao, and only then did the Wang clan leave. As for Zhao Yanfeng, he stared at Zhang Loshi clearly. Zhang Xuan's capabilities have moved him and he hoped to be accepted under his tutelage once more. However, Zhang Xuan immediately rejected this suggestion. What a joke. I am a transcender with a golden finger, someone who will become a Mingxi sooner or later if I allow people to come under me and leave as they please. Wouldn't that trample on my dignity? My previous self had left you berserk, whereas I have made it up to you by helping you break into Fighter 2 Dan. Our grudges have been settled, and I don't want to touch on that ever again. Rejected by Zhang Xuan, depression reflected on Zhao Yanfeng's face. However, after a while, he seemed to recall something and resolution appeared in his eyes. Once more turning around, he followed behind Wang Yan and left. Huang Yuxiaji, may I know how one becomes an associate master teacher? Walking along the way, Zhang Xuan couldn't resist asking her. After this incident, he realized that the only way to create his own place in this world and to not be trampled over by others was to become a master teacher. To become a master teacher, one had to become an associate master teacher first. Associate master teacher is more like a way to address someone. Unlike master teacher, one doesn't need to be assessed for it. It mainly depends on luck. As long as a master teacher has set his eyes on you and invites you to be his assistant, then you are already considered an associate master teacher. Huang Yu explained. Oh. Zhang Xuan nodded his head. Actually, this associate master teacher was similar to the associate professors in his previous life, even though they did not wield true authority and they were more like a spokesperson. They represented the dignity of a master teacher and possessed esteemed standing in society. You are an associate master teacher. Then that bookstore. Zhang Xuan looked at her doubtfully. He was astonished to hear that Huang Yu is an associate master teacher. Previously, when he saw that she was able to freely walk in and out of Master Lu Chen's residence, he knew that her identity was extraordinary. Just that, he didn't expect her identity to be so extraordinary. Furthermore, as an associate master teacher, her identity was even more prestigious than the elders of Hongshan Academy. There was no reason for her to open a remote bookstore in the market. I happened to catch Liu Shi's eye and became his associate master teacher. But as I am still way too young, I require some experience so as to better earn the trust of others. As such, I listened to Liu Shi's orders and chose a packed commercial city to open a small store so as to nurture my character. At the same time, I am also able to read more and become more knowledgeable. Huang Yu explained. She is similar to Loshi, just a shorter version. Zhang Xuan nodded his head. Peering into the truth of matters was a field of knowledge by itself, and building rapport was a skill with great depth. Never underestimate small shop owners. Sometimes, these were the people who have the greatest understanding of human personality, unrivaled even by experts and academics. Sometimes, the best way to understand human nature and temper oneself was to go to the very bottom. As the daughter of the teacher guild's leader, Huang Yu was born with a golden spoon in her mouth. The reason why Liu Shi had asked her to do so was to groom her, as well as to give her more worldly experience. After chatting for a while, he gained a certain degree of understanding towards master teachers and associate master teachers. In this world, the path of teachers was highly respected. Teachers were highly regarded, even much more so than in his previous life. What apothecary, blacksmith, appraiser of the numerous occupations in the upper 9 paths, none of them could compare with master teachers. However, that was to be expected whether it's about cultivation or any other occupations. One required a teacher to guide them along. If one didn't even respect their teachers, how could they possibly improve? Right, what is Master Lu Chen testing you all on? For you all to have to study under me. After comprehending the social position of teachers, Zhang Xuan listed another one doubt that was lingering in his head. Bei Aixun was the young son of Zhen and Wang, whereas Huang Yu was the daughter of the guild leader of the teacher guild, not to mention that she herself was an associate master teacher. Logically speaking, given their social positions, there shouldn't be any need for them to be tested by anyone else. Master Lu Chen has a painting that he has hidden for countless years called the Ink Daily Canvas that both of us wanted. That's why Master intentionally set such a difficult question to evaluate us. Huang Yu explained. Ink Daily Canvas? Zhang Xuan frowned. The one drawn by the master painter Mo Chenzi, ink daily canvas. Neither of you two understand paintings. Why would you want it? In the books Zhang Xuan looked through in the compendium pavilion, there were many records of this ink daily canvas. It was said to be an artistic treasure left behind by master painter a century ago. It was an incomparably valuable painting. It is a gift. Huang Yu blushed. Gift. Zhang Xuan came to a realization. She and Bai Xun had set their eyes upon this ink daily canvas at the same time and requested Master Lu Chen for it. The master agreed to gift it to them, but the prerequisites for it was that they had to pass his test first. The supposed test should refer to appraisal of paintings. Master Zhang, you have such deep understanding of painting, capable of seeing through the problems in it with just a glance. Can you teach us? Bai Xun stared expectantly at him. Indeed, please teach us. Huang Yu also looked over. Teach you too? The reason why he was able to appraise those paintings was due to the help of the Library of Heaven's Path. In reality he didn't know a single thing about paintings, so how could he teach them? Looking at the expectant gazes of the two, Zhang Xuan awkwardly scratched his head, unsure of what he should do. End of the first arc.